Hey, thanks for tuning in to TC McCarthy, probably the best channel on YouTube. Well, not yet, but I hope to get there someday. Today we're going to talk about something that has popped its head up in different kind of fiction things that I've written in the past. One in a kind of novella and the other in one of my books, Germline, and that is the Foreign Legion. They're mysterious, they're tough, they're brave, they fight to the death. Let's talk some more about them and find out exactly what the Foreign Legion is. Hey, you're watching TC McCarthy, the most handsome and entertaining science fiction author on video. Thanks for clicking on this video. Listen, buy my book, Tyger Burning. It'll be released in July of this year, July 2nd, but pre-orders help me out a lot. Pew! I did a video here explaining why that's important. Now, getting to the topic, the Foreign Legion. They really are mysterious. I remember as a kid, first I was born, a long time ago. I'm very old. And I remember as a kid watching old Foreign Legion movies, Abbott and Costello when they joined the Foreign Legion, and you kind of scratch your head back then and go, what is that? And back then, the movies and stuff depicted the Foreign Legion when they were really, France still had its empire, and they were deployed to the desert areas in places like Morocco, etc., and Algeria. And so the Foreign Legion was basically a place back in historical times, was a place where murderers, thieves, anybody who wanted to hide or forget their real identity could go, and it would all be forgotten. You could sign up, they would give you a new identity, and as long as you were in the Foreign Legion, nobody could find you, and you'd be okay and safe from whatever was chasing you in the real world. Now, you wouldn't be safe from combat, because quite frankly, the Foreign Legion is probably one of the most dangerous services you could possibly join, but that doesn't seem to matter to a lot of people, and I have to admit, when I was a younger man, I actually entertained the thought of signing up. There's a romantic aspect to the Foreign Legion that you really can't deny unless you're brain dead. And that's why the Foreign Legion raises its head in so much of my fiction. In Germline, the main character, Oscar Wendell, runs into a Foreign Legion unit and interacts with them. There's some British soldiers serving with them, and the thing he remembers most about them is the great kind of meals that they have, including wine, which I think is true in the case of many French forces. They get tremendous, we get MREs. Whatever the French equivalent is supposed to be quite a bit nicer. So let's figure out a few things that actually make the Foreign Legion special, why they're romantic, and why I felt such a need to include them in Germline and to write an entire novella about what the Foreign Legion might look like in the future. Now, that novella was written when I was still with Orbit Books. Blah! Thank God I'm not with them anymore, and I love being with Baen Books because I can say whatever I want. But anyway, I wrote that novella back when Orbit Books was doing their short fiction series that they would put up on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I don't think it's available anymore, but I'm going to look in the future in terms of how I can revive that and put that out maybe in a book of short stories or something like that. So stay tuned for further announcements along those lines. Now, let's get to the first thing that makes the Foreign Legion so interesting, mysterious, and romantic. Legionnaires are instilled with this kind of esprit de corps and this ideal that you don't give up, you fight to the death. Take a look at one of the most famous battles in Indochina when the French were occupying Vietnam, the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. Now, I think that maybe there were a few who escaped, but it was a very, very dark time for French forces, and the Foreign Legion personnel deployed there, lots of them met their end. They really put up a determined resistance that resulted in many, many, many of them dying. But perhaps the most famous battle where French Foreign Legion forces fought to the death was an older one, the Battle of Chimera. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not. I don't really care. That happened in 1863 when French forces fought against the Mexican army. The Legionnaires had only 65 men. 65. And the Mexican army consisted, brought to bear against the French forces, consisted of about 3,000 men. 65 to 3,000. All throughout the combat, the 65 men holed up in a hacienda, and all throughout the battle, the Mexican army would continuously ask them if they wanted to surrender, and the French Foreign Legion forces would respond back, no, do you want to surrender? Now, in the end, 5 men survived, and I believe they mounted a bayonet charge. I can't remember if it was the Mexican army that did a bayonet charge or the Foreign Legionnaires. I think it may have been the Foreign Legionnaires, but anyway, what the Mexican army said after it was all over and they had surrounded and forced the final few men to surrender, the Mexican army basically looked around and said, is this all there are? And according to one book, a Mexican major who was fighting in the battle at the time said, these are not men, these are demons. Absolutely right. Another cool thing about being in the Foreign Legion is if you get wounded as a foreigner in the Foreign Legion, you are automatically granted French citizenship. So if that's important to you, join the Foreign Legion and get yourself in a situation where you could be wounded. Now, over time, I didn't find this number to be very big, but it depends on probably your perspective. If you're a family member of somebody who died, this number is probably very big. 35,000 Foreign Legionnaires have died over time. And the concept, when you join the Foreign Legion, one of the things you have to realize is that the French government looks at the Foreign Legion forces as expendable. These are not French citizens. So if they get killed, massacred, whatever, it's not something that's going to really cause great concern back home for French citizens. So they wind up using the French Foreign Legion in all sorts of situations that really they wouldn't want to risk their own French forces for. So you are totally expendable. You're putting your life in the hands of God knows who, but it's a risk that appeals to many, many men. And that's the other thing. As of now, the Foreign Legion consists only of men. I don't believe they allow any women into their ranks. Officers at one point could only be French citizens, and I believe that's still the case. And then there was a bunch of changes to the rules in terms of, who could sign up and who could be officers back in the day, because at one point when France gave up its colony in Algeria, a French Foreign Legion force staged a coup d'etat against the French government. So since that period of time, the French government has had a little bit more distrust of Foreign Legion forces. It keeps them at an arm's length and under tight control. And then the fourth thing that's really interesting and kind of gives them this romantic, atmosphere is that you still can join up and get a new identity. Now, they won't take rapists and murderers anymore. They're going to turn you in and that kind of stuff. But if you're guilty of petty crimes, certain kinds of crimes that are kind of, they look the other way on, there are some of those, they will give you a new identity. They won't report you, but they will, before letting you come in, they'll search like Interpol databases and stuff to make sure you're not such a bad guy. And then once they give you a new identity, you can opt to keep it and use it, or you can go back to your old identity. It's your choice. So if you want to get away and become somebody completely different, again, join the Foreign Legion. The last thing is one that makes me scratch my head and wonder, why would anybody join the Foreign Legion given this? The pay is horrible and the benefits are horrible. I think it's like $1,700 American equivalent a month to be a Foreign Legion soldier. And benefits-wise, I don't know what the benefits are. Now, the one good thing is that they provide basically all the booze you can drink. Foreign Legionnaires are famous for the amount that they drink. And I think they also, if you're posted somewhere, the Foreign Legion has a history of setting up a brothel at the same location. So there is that. They do consider those kinds of quote-unquote needs. And I'm not lying. I believe that's still the case today. Go ahead and Google that. So, but in terms of benefits, that's basically, in a nutshell, what you get. So $1,700 a month plus booze. Maybe for some people, that's really, really attractive. Now, I think if you stay in the Foreign Legion for your entire service and retire from the Foreign Legion after serving I don't know how many years, you also get French citizenship and can retire to a special Foreign Legion retirement home. So there are kind of ancillary benefits like that. But I don't know about you, I wouldn't want to spend my golden years with a bunch of fellow killers, murderers, whatever. I'd want to get away from that at that point, I think. Anyway, that's it. Foreign Legion, really cool force. I know the author Nick Cole has done some work using Foreign Legion forces in his science fiction as well, so check those out. But anyway, that's all I've got for now for the Foreign Legion. Please, please, please buy my book early. Pew. Tyger Burning, I'll put a picture there. Again, available July 2nd. End transmission. Hey, thanks for watching. This is T.C. McCarthy, the most handsome, eclectic, and entertaining science fiction author on video. Once again, take a look at my books. The links are below in the description. Buy them. Pre-order Tyger Burning right now. It'll help me out a lot with sales and getting on the bestsellers lists. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to the channel, and please, please, please hit that little bell icon as well. YouTube has made it very difficult for you, the viewer, to get updates anytime I do a video. So please hit that bell icon and you will get notified. Thanks again. See you soon.